right. So first, we'll start with the new navigation. So this has been enabled for everyone, and it's changed your hamburger menu to the side menu now. So you can turn it off by going to your logo up or your profile icon up here and just selecting to turn that off, and it'll be back to the original hamburger menu here. There is a bug. If you turn it off, you might not be able to turn it back on again. So it is being fixed though, just so you know. And then it's meant to be a little bit easier to navigate. So if you want to read through all of that, once you open the new navigation, there's a little pop-up that says learn more, so you can learn more about that. But I did just want to make a note of that. And then if you would like to give feedback, there's a little give feedback button here, and you can let them know if there's any issues or if you like it or not. And that is new navigation. All right, so we're going to start with just a few very basic things that I always really like to show people because they don't know that it's there. For example, when we're looking at maybe period mode for year to date, and we start adding in a lot of different properties, if we scroll to look at the columns to the right, we lose all of the information about the customer or about whatever dimension we're looking at. So what you can do instead is you can freeze with a little snowflake down here on the bottom left. And that will freeze any properties that you have selected. So once we move through, these don't move anymore. So it'll just freeze any properties. The next one I wanted to talk about is our select all and exclude. I did this, excuse me, the other day for a customer, and they didn't know it was there. So I wanted to make sure I covered it. So this little black triangle here will select everything that you have. So I'm going to change this to previous month just so it loads faster. But if we click on this black triangle, it selects everything. So sometimes this is easier to select everything and then just maybe click on a few that you don't want and then hit focus. Or another way that you can exclude things is you can highlight and then right click and say exclude selections, and that'll exclude whatever you've selected there. So it's just something I like to show, pretty simple, but really important. Along with that right click exclude, there's a couple other ones that I wanted to show you, which are sort of hidden sometimes. So in the column of the dimension, you can right click and see properties about whichever one you're right clicking on. For some reason, it's not letting me do that. There. Weird. I did this about 5 minutes ago, so something's going on with that. Normally, you can right click and you'll see properties. There it goes. Okay, so the properties pop up. We'll show you the code, the name, and then anything else that's listed as a property of that one selection. You can also do the same thing in the value column to see transactions. So this is just taking you to transaction mode. It's just a little bit faster than having to highlight, focus, and then go to transaction mode. So instead, what you can do is you can find somewhere in one of these columns here. I'm going to choose this first customer, and under the total column, I can right click and just go directly to transactions. So you'll notice that anytime you use a right click feature, if you're in this gray area here, it doesn't work. So make sure you're in the white area of whatever line, whatever row, whatever column you need. So for this customer, I want to see what makes up this whole value of 150,000. I can go right to transactions, and it shows me every transaction, which is just one for this one. And then from there, you can add in all of your different properties. So once you're in transaction mode, just keep in mind that you can't focus and filter. So do all of your focusing and filtering first, and then go into transaction mode. You can, however, go to advanced search and search, customize your search there. but you do want to do all of your focusing and filtering first before you get in there. The next one I want to talk about on the right click feature is the shortcut to advanced search. So for this example, one that we use is maybe sales are up, but margin is down. So we can easily look at I'm going to do previous month again, just because it's easy. So we can easily look at previous month in variance mode and see that by customer, you can see their sales are up or down from this same month last year. So we're comparing August of this year to August of last year. But a really important thing that's come up lately is with inflation, it's likely that your sales dollars will be increased from years prior just because of that. So it's important to also look at the margin. What you can do is once we're in variance mode, you can go to your measures and I'm going to add in my margin percent as another measure. And what we're looking at is current value and margin versus previous value and margin, and then the variance as a number and as a percentage. So what I can look at here is what in this variance column under value, I want to look at anything that has a variance value in the positive, because that means that their sales are up. So I can right click and say greater than 0. And then in the margin column, I'm going to do the same thing, but opposite. So I'm going to right click and say less than 0. And now what that should do is it should show me all of my customers who have increased sales, but decreased margins, August this year versus August last year. And you can do this, of course, for any time period. So if I compare this, I can see that this customer, their current sales dollars, 150, previous 33, margin 18, but their margin was better last year. So then it just gives you a little bit more, it gives you a better idea of where your margins are and sales and everything. So then you can sort it just by clicking here. So that's the right click features that I like to point out. And what we've done with that right click greater than less than is we've created that shortcut to advanced search calculations in here, which we're not going to cover today, but that's basically what that does. So then you can go in and fine tune those two. If you'd rather have, instead of just greater than 0, you can say, I want the variance to be greater than 100. And then it'll really fine tune it for you. The lock button is something I like to cover. And the lock button, the most like out of the box way that I've seen someone use this is a customer of mine. She was the buyer for only one company. They had 2 companies in their Phocas site. And every time she opened her sales database, she had to go to, we're going to make believe this country is company. So every time she had to go in there, she would go to the company, she would select and then focus, and then she'd have to work through all of this from just doing that one selection for her company. And what happens is then if you have to reset, if you've made a really great favorite, but then you have to reset, it resets everything. So what she was able to do and what the lock button does is that it locks in your selections, even if you have to reset. So what I asked her to do is instead, you can go to your whatever selection it is, highlight and focus, and then go to the lock box and lock it in. So now you'll see that even if I reset, it's locked in to only that selection. And you can make as many selections as you like, but now she could do whatever she needed to do. She could reset and it would still only keep that one company selected. And then beyond this, there's one more thing that I think is really cool, and it's something called set default view. So if I were to save this as a favorite, and with the new navigation, if you're used to Phocas, you'll notice that that star actions button is gone with the new navigation. So this is where it is now. So I'm going to save it as a favorite. And we're going to call this US save view just because, and hit save. So now what happens is when she leaves this database and comes back in, she'll have to do this lock selection again. But if she wanted to, she could go to save or set a default view. And that way she can select that one that she just did. So that US saved view that I made, I can save that as my default view. So every time now I go into a different database, we're just going to go into the finance for a minute and come back just so I can show you. So now every time she goes into her database, you can see that that now as default is locked in. She's set that default view locked in like this. And then to get it to, you first want to save or do your default view again. If you want to get out of this completely, I'm going to use the standard view and click save, and then I can just unlock it from there. So that's the lock feature with the set default view features together. The last one I'll do in analytics before we get into, actually, I'm going to do two more and then we'll move into dashboard tips and tricks. The add to filtered favorite. This one was one that a customer asked me if it could be done. I had no idea it could even be done, and we figured it out. It was pretty neat. So let's say you are in the product class dimension. You've selected the lights and lamps and products, and you wanted to see a certain group of products for whatever reason it is. So you've selected these, you focus, and this is great. And you're analyzing and you realize, uh-oh, I just forgot I had to add one more product to that view. So instead of having to reset and start all the way over, this is kind of a quick workaround that will save you a little bit of time. We can go back to the products we've selected, and you can see that there's 22 selected. And what you can do is highlight using that black triangle we talked about earlier, and then click on the X right next to it. And it'll keep those 22 selected. And then you can just add to it and then focus again. So it's selected the 22 I had still. I can go in and add a couple more and then click focus. So one more time, just in case you missed it. We've selected a product class. We go into the products. We've made our selections. We're moving on. And oops, I forgot I had to add one more. So instead of resetting, which will put everything back, I can just go back to this dimension, highlight it all, and then click the X, and then go in and add a few more. What you can't do is do the first selection because it won't, because we've already made other selections around it. It doesn't work that well. So it's only on that last layer that you've selected and focused and filtered. But it saved him a ton of time. So that was really cool. I like to share that one. And then one more thing before we move on to some really cool dashboard stuff is the measures formatting. So for me, I really like to have my value and my, let's say my quantity. I want them separated with a $sign and with decimals and whatnot. So if your view doesn't already look like this, where you have a $sign and you really love it, or opposite of that, if you really hate to see the $sign because you're used to not seeing it, you can format this just for you. So this is user specific. If you go to measures and formatting, so for the value, you can just do a number with no decimals, with no $sign. And then for the quantity, I'm going to leave that just as is. And if we hit apply, it takes away decimals, it takes away the $sign. And that'll keep that just for you that way. If you wanted to add, if it looks like this and you want to add, you just go to custom and then click on the 3 dots. And we're going to add the $sign. I always like to have 2 decimal places, and I like to separate thousands. And then your value will always look like that until you change it. All right, we're going to move over now to the dashboard. So there's a lot of really cool things with dashboards, but one of the main things that I think is so amazing about a dashboard, and it saves so much time, is how you can create one dashboard and then set restrictions for every user that you have. And even in those restrictions, you can do more. So I'll back up. So for this dashboard, I've created a sales dashboard for every single person on my team to look at. This is one dashboard. It's the information that everybody needs, but I've gone in and I've set restrictions on their profile to only see their information. So for example, I'm looking at my view. I'm the Phocas admin. I can see everything for every sales rep, for every customer. So I can see that my customers here, my customers are a little over 1,800, company sales, 56 million. And when I shared this to Bethany, Bethany is only able to see her information. So I'll show you what her view looks like. So this is Bethany's view, the same sales dashboard, but only set to her permissions. So now you can see there's only 79 because these are only her customers. This is the company sales, but this is just for her. She can't see anyone else's, and so on. So everything that we've listed here, even these top 10 products and bottom 10 products, are only hers. So what if I want Bethany to see everything that's hers except for these top metrics? I don't want her to see company sales that are just hers. I want her to know where she stands versus the entire company. There's this really cool feature called Run As. So when I go to edit, I can run this widget only as myself or anyone else. As the Phocas admin, I can choose. But for me, I want everyone to see it as the admin. So I'm going to click save. I'm going to do the same thing for prior year. I'm going to do the same thing for that margin and for this margin. So now I've set everything to run as me, just for the top one. So if we go back to Bethany's dashboard, I'm going to refresh. And you'll see now that she can see the whole company sales because I've run it as me, but also she cannot analyze. She can analyze her things because she's got the analyze button there, but she can't analyze these ones because I'm running it as someone who has permissions to things that she doesn't have. So I really love that feature because then it just saves you so much time. You don't have to create a dashboard for every single salesperson just to make sure that all of their things are restricted. So if you restrict a profile, it's on the admin side, and that's something that we can cover at a later date if you need help with that. The only thing I think about when I'm going through these is if I want this view to be like this just for the dashboard, but I want Bethany to be able to see everything when she analyzes this, she can again only see her information. But if I wanted her to be able to see other people's information, I think how I would set this up is I might make a run as a little bit different maybe on this one. So you'd have to kind of think through what your goals are going to be for this and how you want people to see their information. But that is one really underutilized feature, I think, that people miss out on. So this will save you a lot of time. It'll save you a lot of space on your site, and it'll still keep all the restrictions so everyone can look at their stuff and not anything sensitive. The link feature, I love this. I think it's another underutilized one. So anytime you have a widget in a dashboard with a code, you can link these to other dashboards. So if we go into edit and we link to a different dashboard, so you can only link if there's a code as a property. But I want to link this one to, let's say, customer scorecard, so that now when anyone comes in and looks at their sales dashboard, they can look at, oh, that's my customer. I'm going to click on the link and it takes them straight to the customer scorecard. So that's kind of neat because then you don't have to go out and look for it and then find the customer and so on. It just takes them straight there.